Have you ever imagined what would happen if one day the internet simply stopped? No messages, no streaming, no online banking, no video calls, no news updates, just silence. We live in a world where everything feels wireless. Wi-Fi signals float around us like invisible air. Satellites circle above our heads. But here's the truth that most people never think about. Nearly all of our global internet traffic does not travel through space. It travels through the darkest, coldest, and most dangerous places on Earth, the bottom of the ocean. Beneath thousands of meters of crushing pressure, thinner than a garden hose cables stretch across continents. They carry secrets, business deals, military commands, family memories, and billions of daily conversations. And lately, something strange has been happening. Cables are breaking. Not one, not two, but again and again. At first, it seemed like accidents, but here's the twist. The pattern is starting to worry governments, military experts, and intelligence agencies around the world. The real question is no longer, how do these cables work? The real question is, who's destroying undersea internet cables? To understand what's happening today, we need to go back to the beginning. The first submarine communication cables were laid in the 1800s. Back then, they carried telegraph signals, not Instagram reels or Netflix streams. When the first transatlantic cable connected Europe and North America, it changed the world overnight. Messages that once took weeks by ship could now travel in minutes. It felt like magic. Over time, technology improved. Copper cables were replaced by fiber optics. Data speeds exploded. Today, more than 95% of international data travels through undersea cables. There are hundreds of them, stretching for more than 1 million kilometers across the ocean floor. These cables connect continents like invisible highways. They connect Asia to Europe, America to Africa, Australia to the rest of the world. When you send a message from your phone, chances are it dives into the sea before reaching its destination. But here's something most people don't realize. These cables are surprisingly fragile. In deep waters, they are about as thick as a garden hose. Near the shore, where fishing boats and ship anchors are common, they are protected with steel layers. Still, they are not indestructible. For years, the biggest threat was accidental damage. Fishing trawlers dragging heavy nets across the seabed would sometimes snag a cable. Ship anchors dropped in the wrong location could tear one apart. Earthquakes under the ocean could snap them like thin threads. But lately, things feel different. Over the past few years, several cables in critical regions have been cut under unusual circumstances. In the Baltic Sea, important data links were damaged more than once. In the North Sea, cables connecting major European nations were mysteriously severed. Near Taiwan, multiple cables were cut within a short time frame, disrupting communications on nearby islands. Each time, officials initially called it an accident. But what nobody expected was how often these accidents started happening, especially in politically sensitive areas. And that's when the suspicion began. Let's talk about the Baltic Sea for a moment. The Baltic is not just any body of water. It sits between NATO countries and Russia. It's a region filled with military activity, intelligence operations, and rising tension. When undersea cables in that area were damaged, investigators noticed something strange. Certain ships were nearby when the cables were cut. Not fishing boats, not small civilian vessels, but larger ships with unclear intentions. Some reports suggested that ships had slowed down directly above cable routes before damage was discovered. Others noticed anchors dragging across protected cable zones. Coincidence? Maybe. But here's the problem. Undersea cables are mapped. Their routes are known to governments and shipping companies. Anchors are not supposed to be dropped in those areas. Maritime navigation systems warn ships when they approach cable zones. So when a vessel drags an anchor across a cable route in calm weather, it raises eyebrows. Then there's the South China Sea. This region is already one of the most tense areas on the planet. It connects global trade routes and is claimed by multiple countries. Near Taiwan, several undersea cables were cut within months. Internet service on outlying islands slowed to a crawl. Residents struggled to make phone calls. Businesses faced serious disruptions. Officials blamed passing cargo ships, but analysts pointed out that some of those ships had suspicious travel patterns. They lingered in areas where cables run. They changed routes in unusual ways. And this is where things start to feel uncomfortable. Modern warfare isn't always about missiles and tanks. It's about information. If you can disrupt a country's communication systems without firing a single shot, you can create confusion, economic damage, and fear. Stock markets rely on high-speed data connections. Military coordination depends on secure communications. Emergency services need stable networks. Cut the cables and you don't just slow down Netflix, you shake a nation's stability. Military experts have quietly warned that undersea cables are one of the world's most vulnerable pieces of infrastructure. They are long, they are exposed, and they are impossible to guard every second.
Think about it. These cables stretch across thousands of kilometers of open ocean. No fences, no cameras, no security guards. Just darkness. And in that darkness, specialized submarines can operate undetected. Certain countries have advanced submersibles capable of reaching extreme depths. They can map the ocean floor. They can manipulate objects underwater. Officially, these submarines are for research. Unofficially, no one can truly monitor what happens beneath the waves. NATO has publicly expressed concern about increased Russian naval activity near key cable routes. Western officials claim that certain vessels are designed specifically for deep-sea operations, including interacting with undersea infrastructure. At the same time, China has dramatically expanded its underwater capabilities. The South China Sea is full of surveillance equipment, research vessels, and maritime patrol ships. No country openly admits to targeting cables, but everyone is preparing for the possibility that someone might. And here's where it gets even more unsettling. Not all cable damage is physical. Cybersecurity experts warn that undersea cables can also be tapped. In the past, intelligence agencies have secretly accessed fiber optic cables to intercept communications. It requires advanced technology, but it's possible. That means the threat isn't only about cutting connections, it's about spying. When you send a message across continents, it might pass through international waters. Who's watching? Who's listening? Governments rarely speak openly about this, but leaked documents over the years have shown that undersea cable surveillance is very real. So now we're facing two dangers: sabotage and surveillance. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, because when a cable breaks, investigators must first determine whether it was an accident or intentional. That process takes time. Meanwhile, headlines spread panic, markets react, political tensions rise. In 2022 and 2023, multiple cable disruptions in European waters happened during periods of high geopolitical tension. The timing felt too convenient for some observers, but proving sabotage underwater is incredibly difficult. There are no fingerprints at the bottom of the sea. Storms can move cables, anchors can drift, ships can clean mechanical failures. And even if a country suspects another nation, accusing them publicly could escalate conflict.
So most investigations end quietly. Accidental damage, the official statements say. But behind closed doors, military planners are taking it very seriously. New patrols are being established to monitor cable zones. Some countries are investing in underwater drones designed to inspect and protect key infrastructure. Others are building backup cable routes to reduce vulnerability. Because here's the reality. If a major conflict ever breaks out between powerful nations, undersea cables could become the first targets. Not cities, not airports, but the silent lines beneath the sea. The emotional impact of this possibility is heavier than most of us realize. We depend on the internet for almost everything. Families separated by continents rely on video calls to stay connected. Small businesses survive through online orders. Students attend virtual classes. Hospitals transmit medical data across borders. If those connections suddenly disappear, even temporarily, the shock would be massive. In small island communities where cables were cut, residents described feeling isolated and anxious. Online banking stopped working properly. Government services slowed down. People drove to higher ground searching for weak mobile signals. It wasn't just inconvenience. It felt like being cut off from the world. And imagine that happening on a national scale. Airlines grounded, financial markets frozen, emergency communication systems delayed. All because of something lying silently on the ocean floor. So who's destroying undersea internet cables? The honest answer is complicated. Sometimes it's fishermen who accidentally drag heavy equipment across the seabed. Sometimes it's ship anchors dropped carelessly. Sometimes it's natural disasters like underwater earthquakes. But sometimes the circumstances are too suspicious to ignore. Governments won't always say it openly. Intelligence agencies won't release all the evidence, and powerful nations rarely admit to operating in the shadows. But the rising tension around the world makes one thing clear. Undersea cables are no longer just pieces of technology. They are strategic weapons. They are leverage. They are pressure points. And as global rivalries grow stronger, these fragile lines beneath the waves are becoming part of a silent battlefield. The next time your internet slows down for a few seconds, you probably won't think about the ocean floor. You won't imagine steel-armored cables lying under crushing pressure. You won't picture submarines gliding silently in the dark. But maybe you should. Because in a world that depends on instant connection, the real power doesn't just lie in satellites or servers. It lies in those hidden threads stretching across the sea. And somewhere out there, in the cold darkness miles below the surface, someone might be watching them. Or worse, touching them.